Welcome to Beyond Six Figures, the podcast that helps business coaches to micro-niche, get noticed, and become fully booked. Learn from top industry leaders who've successfully taken their businesses and their lives beyond six figures. Get ready to level up your coaching business and make this world a better place, one business at a time. And now, here's your host, Ziv Raviv.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Six Figures. Our guest today is Mike Schmidt, co-founder of Agency Coach and Anchorwave. Mike built a multi-million-dollar digital agency from scratch, delivering over 2,000 websites and hundreds of marketing campaigns. Through Agency Coach, he helps other agency owners build recurring revenue and systems that scale. He is a 5-time 2 Comma Club award winner, and we'll talk about some of that and what does that mean. And he's the creator of the Agency Operating System, a proven framework for growing your agency without burnout. If you want practical strategies to create consistent revenue and reclaim your time, if you want to learn from a worker that is doing business coaching and is like really doing whatever he wants to, you're going to love this conversation today. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Well, it's really hard with your story to know where to start because there's so many things that you've achieved that are super interesting. But I would like to challenge you to choose the one thing that you think actually made you choose to become a coach.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it very much identifies being a coach these days, although that's not necessarily where it started. I think that early on in my business career, when I started my agency, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. The only thing I was really certain about was that I liked building websites, and that I ended up starting a business doing that because it was an excuse to stay in the town where I was going to college after I graduated, because I was dating a girl who'd become my wife. I was playing in a band, and I didn't want to quit the band, obviously. And all my friends were here. So the prospects for a web designer in 2003 in Tucson, Arizona, here in the desert, weren't very strong. And so creating a business was like my way in. If you would have told me the number of things that were going to happen, the times I'd be punched in the face, the lessons I was going to learn, I'm certain I wouldn't have had the guts to go through with starting a business. But the thing that was persistent throughout, especially the early years of my business, has been mentorship and being the recipient of things like that. At first, it was just kind of an informal mentorship from my dad, who had lots of sales experience and obviously been in business for not owning his own business, but just being in his career for a long time. And then I started working with a local business coach, somebody who kind of showed me the ropes and kind of gave me the education in business that I didn't get going through university, and really had to kind of figure it out on my own. So I think I was inspired by a lot of the folks who just were willing to share their information. And you figure 2003, that this is before YouTube. So it's not as if we could go on YouTube and just go deep for hours and hours on every topic imaginable. And there wasn't necessarily a school of web design or school of running marketing agencies, at least that type at that time. So a lot of it was trial and error and just trying to piece together and cobble together the lessons and the knowledge from other people that would allow me to kind of figure it out and pave my own way. So I think early on, I was had an impression of what it meant to be mentored. And it would be a while before I was like, okay, I want to flip the script and I'm ready to start sharing with other folks.
So in a way, your origin story in business, when you decided to stay and work and build a business, be around the woman that you love and later will become your wife, and be around your friends and your band members and whatnot, it kind of forced you like a wake-up call in a way. You had things to lose if you don't figure this out. So you were open and receptive to be coached. And that actually, fast forward these 20 some years, you did create a remarkable business, a business that these days actually doesn't require you to put in a lot of work for it to continue, to grow, almost like it works on clockwork. We use the term by Mike Michalowicz. So from one mic to another. So what was that moment in time where you decided in a more intentional way, well, I'm ready, I can do this, I can actually help people as a coach?
Yeah, it was probably sometime around 2015. At that point in the agency, I kind of felt like I'd slayed a lot of the dragons, that a lot of the things and the challenges that had arisen, like I'd figured it out by that point. I had a team. I wasn't responsible necessarily for every sale that happened, although I was still responsible for some. I was not responsible for, service delivery of the stuff that got sold. And like, to be honest, I started to get a little bit bored because there'd be days I'd show up to the office and I'm like, what am I supposed to do today? And it was with those kind of idle hands that I ended up getting connected into the funnel building worlds. A guy named Russell Brunson, who's the founder of ClickFunnels, which I know a lot of people know. They went from zero to $100 million business, like what seems like overnight, very quick success story. And so kind of following like what he was doing, I ended up joining his inner circle, which at the time was kind of ragtag group of unknown names, people that today are household names, but back then it was just a bunch of people trading marketing secrets. And we were sitting in the room with the likes of like Alex Hermosi. Like Alex used to come to Tucson here and train our sales team. And I wrote ads for Alex. And it was just like, we're all trading secrets in a back room somewhere. And there's folks that like, we're just kind of talking about how this whole thing worked. And so it was actually at Russell's kind of like, what he made visible to me was the possibility of building a business around my expertise. And I hadn't really fully adopted or considered that. And I'll tell you, I spent a lot of money to be in the room with Russell. And I was in there for 2 years and he's basically saying, here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. And here's how you do it. And I kind of ignored the advice for 2 years. And after 2 years of not following his advice, I finally said, maybe if I'm going to pay this guy some money, I should probably listen to what he had to say and maybe take an action on it. So his advice at the time was, he's like, Mike, what I want you to do is I want you to do a webinar, a live webinar every week for a year. He's like, if you want to make $1 million, like that's how you do it. At that point, I was like, I would try anything. And I was just like, all right, coach, if you say that that's what I got to do, then I'll do it and we'll see what happens. Right. And so he was a little off. It took 14 months. We went from zero to $1 million in 14 months. And I was on like 300,000 in ad spend. So like we made some pretty decent money just doing a webinar. And in that year, I learned a couple of key skills. Like I learned presentations, like I learned how to speak. I learned how to present virtually. I learned how to close deals through like a webinar format. I was able to understand a lot about direct response marketing. I learned about funnels. I learned a lot of key things that like created, like it really upped my marketing expertise. And I got to apply it all to this like online coaching business and definitely just changed the trajectory of my life because it's just doing that consistently is what led to like more and more results and building a community and audience, and life's never been the same.
So can you share with us did you use the same webinar and basically every week presented it to different people that you brought in from your ads? Or was it a new webinar every week? What was the actual flow?
It was the exact same, more or less, webinar from week to week. Kind of think of it like your favorite band, right? Does your favorite band write new songs every night? They go from one city to the next. Are they writing new songs or are they playing the same hits over and over and over again? And that was kind of the idea, is that the song stayed the same and the audience changed. And sometimes there was some of the same audience there. And so what that allowed me to do is be very deliberate in my testing and adjusting things. So I'd create the webinar, I would do it, and like I'd watch where people would drop off, or like I would test different emails or different front-end marketing hooks that would help people come in. And it's funny because the very first time we did the webinar, I was on there and we had maybe 10 people that had registered. I think I had maybe 3 show up, which is like typical, like 30% show rate, like for a cold audience is okay. And when the webinar ended, nobody had purchased. And it was $1,000 offer at the end of it. And I went to lunch with my business partner and another guy on our team. And it was just kind of bummed, right? Like, okay, we spent this money. Like, I know there wasn't that many people on, but I was like, I need a sign of life. And while we were having lunch, my phone buzzes, and sure enough, first sale comes through for $1,000. And man, you would have thought that we like scared everybody in the restaurant because we're like screaming, like, "Oh my God, this is crazy!" That was like the moment where it's like, okay, we got something here, right? This could work. And so what's funny is my immediate thought, what I said to the guys, I was like, all right, cool. So now we can automate it, right? And they're like, Mike, you were good, but it wasn't that good, right? We should do it again, right? And they were right. Like, and so every week it was a micro adjustment, a micro change, something else. And like it's really like a rep of lifting a weight. Like you build the endurance, you build things, and you learn it. And the hardest part is doing that. Like I definitely, a month in, 3 months in, 6 months in, I'm doing the same damn webinar every week. And I'm saying the same jokes in the same way, in the same pauses. There was one week that, because I'm telling my story, my journey. And there was one week where like the rest of our team, I invited them to like watch it from another room in our office. And like, I was emotional telling the story because I knew they were watching. And it like really just like caught me off guard. And I choked up and I like had to pause. I was crying during this part of the story. And I'll tell you what, our freaking conversion rate that week was phenomenal, right? Because they realized I was a human, right?
It was
authentic. Well, guess what? The next week I had to try and do. Like I need to try and bring that emotion to that. And so crying on command sometimes is like, so it's, I often think of it like being an actor, is that you have to bring the performance. And so like that's now maybe could I have had success doing a different webinar or changing it up? And I think there's a point to be made around potentially changing things up as well. But like, that was just how I started. And like I just really took my coach's advice to heart. He's like, do it every week for a year. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I already paid this guy like more than 50 grand to do nothing. So I should probably just do what the coach says. And I'm going to be the best damn student ever. And it worked out.
And it did work out. And you got to $1 million in 14 months. And that really does help with credibility and with understanding the mechanics of putting in the reps. What eventually pushed you into so now you're like, you've built a business, you've built it to a level where the sales are happening without you, the delivery is happening without you. When you decided now I'm going to be a business coach, did you have a napkin plan? What type of a plan did you have for that?
Yeah. So the story I just shared happened like around end of 2017 into 2018. And basically the next 2 years, we just kind of kept on doing the same thing. And it was like, I kind of equated to like, we were pulling a slot machine handle every week, spend money on ads, run the webinar, see what comes out. And some weeks it was like great. And other weeks we would go week after week where our conversion rates weren't where they should be. But on the whole, it was averaging out. But like, it's not a very fun way to run a business where it's like, okay, we'll see what happens. And I better be on point this week. And if I don't cry in the right spot, and everything goes to crap. And so there's a lot of pressure that was building. And so leading into the pandemic, what happened is selling this course, we had built quite a lot of program, and pandemic comes about. And we ended up having a lot of folks in our community that were like uncertain and didn't know what to do. And so they were looking to me and being like, well, Mike, you own an agency, like what should we do? And so we ended up pulling a group of folks together, and we did an 8-week kind of sprint and teaching them some of the stuff that we were doing to keep our agency going during that time. And we got to the end of the 8 weeks and they were like, okay, now what? And I'm like, well, that's it. I mean, you guys paid a couple grand to do this 8-week thing and now we're done. And like, people were like, but we don't want it to be done. I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, all right, we're going to launch our mastermind. And like, then the people jumped into our mastermind. And that was like our first time that we had built the business around a recurring coaching model. And like before it was, you pay me, here's the container and the experience. It starts, it ends, and then good luck, right? And once we started the other program, then it became a program where like, all right, we're just going, we're doing this. You're going to be in our world until you don't want to be in the world anymore. And we have a plan and a program to work you through. And so at the end of 2020, we transitioned from having a business that was very up and down to one that was like growing consistently and a lot more stable. And so I'm basically sitting, I don't remember exactly the situation, but I can tell you exactly what I did. There was some situation in the agency that popped up that required me to jump out of all the stuff I was doing in the coaching business and get back into the agency for something. And I remember thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I don't need to do this, right? Like, I hate that I'm getting pulled into this, and I don't need to be, even though I'm like letting myself being tugged back into this business. And I called up my business partner. I said, hey, let's sell it. Like, I want to sell the agency. I'm done. And he's like, whoa, slow your roll, and what's going on? And I'm like, this and that and this thing. He's like, well, why don't we just like put a CEO in place? And I was like, okay, if we're not going to sell it, that sounds great. I would love to do that. And so we ended up promoting from within a woman that had been with us for quite a long time, like probably a story for another time, but she was the right person to put in that spot. And she's led the company as the CEO for about 5 years now. And that was when, end of 2020 is when I jumped both feet into coaching and out of the agency. And so I still own the agency. I spend about 8 to 12 hours a year in it. And a lot of that is just kind of like steering and mainly them updating us about how awesome they are. And so that's been the big bulk of my involvement there. And so like switching full time into coaching kind of came on the heels of like kind of being angry at something. And I was just like ready, like my soul was telling me it's time to do something different. It's time to form. And it's kind of funny because I don't know. I'm so grateful to the pandemic because I just don't see how that would have happened without that whole thing, right? Because like the pandemic is what propped us up, that made our community like shake me by the shoulders and be like, we need this from you. And I'm like, okay, here you go. And then that set us up for the kind of stability we needed in the business and gave me the confidence to like go of this other thing. A lot of times I think about like, like when you're a kid and like there's like the monkey bars and stuff, and like you want to reach for the next rung of the bar, but in order to reach for the next one, you got to let go of the one back here. And it's like I had to let go of the agency in order to fully grasp onto that one in front of us. And it's just like, it's funny how those kind of things work out.
So I want to dive into one framework that you talk about, which is the 4-pillar operating system with attract, activate, ascend, and deliver, which is a part of the agency coach core principles. Can you expand a little bit about the difference between each other, especially when it comes to attract and activate?
Yeah, we really look at it as like 4 different components of the business, right? So, attracting businesses, I think where most people tend to think and spend their time, like in the agency world, and I think it's the same in the coaching world, like the number one thing that I hear is, I need more leads, right? Well, I all want more leads. And then most people, once you get the leads, you're kind of going to jump into conversion. Well, I got to convert those leads, right? And then once I convert those leads, I've got to deliver to those folks, right? And most people think of it as kind of those 3 pieces. In my view, there's really a 4th one, which is really about activation. And it's just kind of our word for how do you nurture leads such that they're ready to do business with you? I think a lot of people confuse the difference between a lead and a prospect, right? A lead is just top of the funnel, someone who's like in your orbit. They could be interested in your services, but they're not necessarily a prospect yet. I think when most people do lead generation, what they're really saying is they want prospect generation, right? And when you realize that those are 2 distinct things, leads and prospects, it allows you to actually install the marketing systems that are necessary in order to get the result that you want, which is more closed deals. I don't know if you've ever generated leads before or heard somebody doing it and they say like the leads suck, right? We're generating these leads are no good. Well, I actually have a definition of leads. It's an opportunity that sucks, right? All leads suck. Every lead on the planet sucks. Why? They suck because they are not prospects yet. And so the job of good marketing and good nurture is to turn a lead into a prospect and get them to raise their hand. So I know that a lot of folks who probably be listening to this are coaches, and I would just ask you to ask yourselves, like, what are you truly doing to create an opportunity to nurture the leads that are coming into your world? Are you willing to play the long game? If you think about it, the story I told with attracting people in with a webinar, because I didn't have something else to really sell them at the end of the day, like all I was doing with those people was nurturing them. I was not trying to get them to raise their hand to do something else. That was stupid. I mean, it worked out because we ended up fixing it a couple of years later. But like, really, you want to look at what are you doing to create a better relationship and a better brand with the people that are in your world. It's a simple idea that the better your marketing is and the better your brand is and the stronger your brand is, the easier sales will get. So if you're having trouble converting those leads or prospects into sales, maybe go look at and say, like, what does that customer journey actually look like? Such that, like, what do they believe and think about me? If you could think of like any like of the big influencers that maybe you follow, the reason why you can think of them is because they have strong branding and strong reputation. They're visible to you and visible to their audience, which is going to make their sales process of selling something a lot easier. So especially like as a beginner, like maybe a beginning end of being a coach, it's like, it's never too early to start nurturing. And like, yes, that's posting on content on social media, but it's also like, what kind of stories are you sharing in email? And like, there's lots of different tactics you can use to activate people into prospects. But like, if you just lump leads and prospects into one category, like you're going to piss off both of them, right? You're going to piss off the leads. They're not going to become prospects. The prospects don't like to be treated like leads because like they've graduated, yet you're treating them all kind of universally the same.
So what is a way for you as the business owner or as the business coach that is trying to convert leads into prospects? How do you know they are now officially can be tagged as prospects? Is there do they have to buy a tripwire? Do they have to engage into a webinar? Is there one magical moment where you know, yes, we did it. They're now a prospect?
For me, the definition is, did they raise their hand and ask me for help? Right? Because even the example you just gave, if a lead jumps in and buys like a $7 or $27 tripwire, like they ascended to customer really quick. You converted them. But somebody who's a customer ceases to be a prospect now, right? Does that make sense? Like you've got to go back and you have to nurture your paying clients just like you've nurtured the leads. It's really the same thing. And we got to get them, like, here's my deep, dark secret. I was not born a salesperson. I hate selling. And so in order to get good at closing deals, I just got good at getting people to be like, hey, can you help me with that thing? Like, I see you do that. Can you help me do that thing? And it's like, if somebody comes to me and asks that all day long, I'll help you. And then I'll also tell you what the investment is to do that. And that's way easier to sell. If I have to beg or convince you, right, then like I've already lost. I'm actually not very good at that. And so our leads, we want to nurture, but our customers, we want to nurture too, because at the end of the day, we want both of those groups of people to come back and be like, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I'd like to apply for your thing. Or yeah, tell me more information about that. And I'd like to have a simple rule of thumb that I've found over the years is if you want to close more deals, start more conversations. Right? It. And the beautiful thing is you can start a conversation about anything, right? It doesn't matter, right? Just get them talking to you, right? Because a conversation can go different directions and it can lead into what you want. Or worst case scenario, you just spend some time nurturing that person.
You can't really build a relationship if you're not listening, and you can't listen if it's not a conversation, right? So I love that. These days, do you have any like tripwires that you offer, or do you have, you go directly to like the offer?
I mean, it's a multi-pronged approach, and that's what's kind of cool about this business, right? So we still run ads to webinars, right? We always have. Like there's some group of people who are like, want to jump straight into an education thing. We run stuff where it's lead magnets and freebies that they opt in. And then they're on our mailing list, and then we nurture them through email, or we might nurture them through retargeting ads. In some cases, we'll either as part of some funnel or even on the front end, we'll say, hey, we got this $7 or $27 thing. Like different groups of people need and want different things at different times, which is kind of obvious to say that. And so it's like you want to run different things that are going to get people into your list. Like for me, like the initial win is like, do I have your contact information and do I have permission to start to build a relationship with you? Like that and that could be done on email lists. That could be if somebody's joining into like online community. I want to get them off of the ad platform or off of wherever they found me and into my ecosystem where I can start to build that relationship. And that's the thing that kind of runs and that crank turns. And that's what books us calls. And that's what gets us registrants for our webinars. And that's what gets us low ticket sales. And if we just, like I said before, we're nurturing customers just like we're nurturing leads. I don't care if you're a customer or a lead. I'm going to try and build a relationship with you just the same.
Mike Schmidt, you offer business coaching in different ways. Can you give us a little bit of the overview? You have group options and you have one-on-one, and maybe even if you don't mind, what's the range of price points that you're working with that gets you excited?
Yeah, so our kind of flagship program is called Mastermind, and that is a $1,500 per month investment. We offer some incentives for prepays. But I've always been a big fan of getting paid every month. And I think a lot of our members appreciate the opportunity to do that too. And so that's what's built a lot more stability for me, where I'm not going through these feast or famine cycles. So very much a big focus on building our monthly recurring revenue in that way. That's the place where we serve people at the highest level. It is a group coaching program. We don't offer any one-on-one, and we never have. I don't think we ever intend to either, but I suppose anything could change, right? Down from there, we have a program that's basically half that investment. It's $750 per month, and that's for folks who they don't have the kind of traction in their businesses that they just need a lot more of the foundational stuff. They don't have access to me directly in that program because they don't need it. It's kind of a distraction. They actually are better served by just going through some of the cadences of things that we lay out for folks. And then we also at times will do, if you remember earlier, I was talking about that 8-week sprint that we put together. We'll do throughout the year, we'll do different 8-week sprints. And usually the investments for those are anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. And the objective for those is all the people who are not ready to jump in and make a commitment on a monthly program, we try and give them an experience over the course of about 8 weeks to see what it's like working with us. And then we'll send them into one of those monthly coaching programs. And then at the bottom of the value ladder, not counting the freebies and low ticket stuff, is still our course that we launched in 2017. We play around with the investment anywhere between $997 and $1,500. But that's a program that doesn't require for me any personal involvement. Here's the login, here's the password. Our head coach runs a weekly call for that, and that becomes a feeder for the rest of those things. So that's kind of the lay of the land, and we're always thinking about our offer for sure. And I think there's been a lot of improvements we made over the years, and I'm sure that'll continue to adjust and change as we see things shift around.
How big is your team now?
We have a team, a core team of 5. We've got myself and my business partner, AJ. We've got our head coach who runs a lot of the service delivery side of things and making sure things are good there. Tanya is our head of operations. And then we've got Trey, who's our all things tech, runs ads and that kind of stuff. And then we've got other folks that are contract for sales and for video editing and things like that. But whether they're contractor or W-2, we're one big close-knit family and work really closely together.
How do you get the courage to spend more on advertising?
That's a great question because it can be scary, right? It's one of those things where for us, because of the monthly recurring revenue, it's less scary to do that. I mean, we're still fairly conservative when it comes to spending money on ads, and maybe we'd be bigger if we were a little bit more cutthroat with that or more bullish on it. But I think it comes down to is you have to have programs. You have to see the value in building and growing your list. I say if my primary weakness is that because we run so much on ads that we've not had to be as aggressive on the organic side of things. I feel that's a weakness of ours. And I would like to be better on that. In fact, I just joined a coaching program on YouTube and I'm all excited about really getting into that side of things. And so I know a lot of coaches personally that have done it without ads. And in fact, I'd venture to say that maybe this is less true these days. It's hard to say, but for the entirety of the time that I've been in coaching, most of the people that I know who've been successful coaching actually have not had an aggressive ad strategy. And they've done it through relationship building by participating online in communities and by doing YouTube. And I have a lot of admiration and respect for those people because like I kind of took the shortcut way. I'm just like, our webinar worked, right? We could spend $1 on ads and take out, anywhere between $1.50 to $2.50 return on ad spend. So it's like, as long as that remains true, then that thing can run forever, right? It's just that when it doesn't, it gets scary when you spend $1 on ads and you get back 85 cents on the return. And so it's just, I think that if you're considering doing paid advertising, understand that like you can optimize for the break-even point, right? Because if you know that your email list, right, or your community is producing at least as opportunities and feeding the business, well, then how can I figure out a funnel that is going to self-liquidate and that I could spend $1 on ads and I make about $1 back on that? If I can break even on my ads, like I'm really not, because I'm breaking even and I'm getting the customer data that I can continue to market to. So I think that there's sometimes some of the coaches I've talked to are worried. They're like, well, if I want to spend $1 in ads, I want to make like $10 return. Well, that's a tough prospect potentially. Everybody wants that. And like, if you figure it out, let me know. I definitely want to learn from you. But like, if you could figure out a way to break even on ads, like, and you pair it with everything I talked about, like that nurture and activating people, then you're in a really good spot.
Where can people learn more about you and see your work?
Awesome. Well, you can head over to agencycoach.com. Got a lot of great resources there. If you're not an agency owner and you're just a coach and never want to talk shop, you can hit me up on Instagram. Mr. Mike Schmidt is my handle. And maybe by the time this airs, maybe I'll have a YouTube channel. That's my next frontier. So like, I guess I get to promote that. So I haven't even set it up yet, but like, be on the lookout for that, or DM me and I'll send you the link.
And in the show notes, we're going to put in the link for the YouTube channel that just launched and is amazing.
Now I got to do it.
Yeah, now you gotta. Mike Schmidt, this is such a refreshing opportunity to just connect and see your work and your vibe and the way you've built businesses in your journey. I salute you. Thank you so much for the time and for sharing this with us here on Beyond Six Figures.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you guys for listening for another episode. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Six Figures. Check out the extended show notes that include bonus material, practical tips, and exclusive resources on our website, zivraviv.com. Until next time, keep dreaming big and pushing your business and your life beyond six figures.